What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Beyond the 90, and today we've got a full house for you. So we're just going to hand over to our special guest first of all. I'll hand over to you, Daniel. So Daniel, where are you from? And yeah, whereabouts in the, you support Leicester, obviously, but whereabouts in the world are you based?
In Wisconsin, middle of the United States, also middle of nowhere in Wisconsin, which means I'm pretty remote. So thank God the internet's working well today.
Fair enough. What's your Leicester story as well? How did you come about supporting them?
I started watching the Premier League pretty much the year they came up. And I remember NBC Sports doing a little joke introducing Leicester to everybody in the States and making a joke about how we really don't know how to properly pronounce the name. And talking about how big the aspirations were of the owners at the time. And I kind of thought it was cool. And then I watched us play a couple times against Chelsea, and then the Man United famous 5-3 win that season. I was hooked. I mean, the Chelsea away game actually at Stamford Bridge, we should have took something from that year. But I just liked watching a team with a lot of heart that everybody kind of thought was, easy to write off.
That's
kind
great
of the
to
plucky
hear.
underdog.
Yeah, well, yeah, the underdog as the song goes. Yeah, but thanks for that, and thanks for joining us, Dan. I will just Dan. So I'll hand over quickly to you, JT, as well. So again, same questions. Where are you from? Whereabouts are you based, and what's your Leicester story?
Yeah, so I'm from Kentucky, in the middle of the United States. Not in a very remote part, pretty close to a big city named Cincinnati. Some of you may have heard of it, may have not, but my Leicester story actually was a bit strange. I started playing FIFA video game back in 2014, the year that they came up, and all I knew is that the Premier League was the biggest league, but I never want to be playing with like the big transfer budgets with Man United in my career mode. So I just picked a random team that was small, had a small transfer budget, and happened to be Leicester. And then started watching them in the Premier League. And as Daniel was talking about, the famous Man United game just kind of like pulls you in.
That's crazy that it comes up. The Man United game, obviously we knew about that, but we just didn't. I think I speak on behalf of James and even and Alex as well, that we just didn't expect that to be the game, as both you've mentioned, that would really attract them. And over to our final guest, Austin. Same question to you as well. Like, where are you based? What's your story, and what's your Leicester-based story?
I'm from South Carolina, down in the South. You can tell by my accent. From a city called Charleston, which is kind of big. I'm kind of the same as the last two. Coming off the 2014 World Cup, obviously the fever was really hitting, and I thought I'd follow the Premier League. And just like Daniel, I saw that skit with Jason Sudeikis on NBC Sports, and I didn't want to pick a big club because I'm not really a bandwagon type person. And then I thought I'd follow Leicester City, and been hooked ever since.
That's great to hear. And also we've got James. James, how are you doing, mate? Just usual standard procedure with you.
Yeah, not bad. From the centre of Leicester. Got good internet. Good.
Good to hear. And let's see how good the internet is this time. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm based in the middle of my bedroom, like always, and not so good internet.
Okay, we'll see how that goes. And just quickly over to our Canadian Fox, Alex. How are you doing, mate?
I'm doing pretty good. It's raining outside, and the internet's kind of spotty at best, but doing pretty good.
Good to hear. It's good to hear that everybody's doing well as well. Right, we'll just move straight into it then. So, obviously, Leicester City. We'll start with the Premier League first of all, and this will be a quick roundup of how well Leicester have done. A few quick players that you think have done really well as well this season, and just kind of a conversation about the Premier League. So, just kind of so far, I'll hand over to JT. Just kind of first of all, what's your opinion on how well Leicester has done since we've started this season?
Pretty much, just given the situation. I mean, even if with full healthy squad, the way that this season's begun, this would be spectacular. But with the given injuries and everything like that, just makes it so much more amazing. Just how we've begun. My player so far that I've been just amazed by, and he's kind of like kickstarted this whole run, has been Poppy Mendy for me. Not because he's necessarily been the most spectacular, but he's come in without any expectations to do well and just absolutely just kind of made the midfield kind of tick with his running and his work rate just all over the pitch.
Yeah, it's something that has actually gone under the radar. I've got that as kind of an underrated player, but yeah, I think we are doing super well this year. Just kind of over to you a little bit more, Austin. Just kind of building on that. Could you imagine that we were going to be this high this early in the season? Obviously, we've lost 2 games, we've won 6, and we are sitting at the top of the Premier League table. But how have you found this? How have you found the performances so far this season?
I mean, other than the 2 losses, which I mean, they just happen sometimes. I mean, it's been amazing. I mean, I was guessing we were gonna struggle this season, especially when Europa League came in and then the injuries come in. But the way that the players, the second team players just kind of came in and we almost seemed better than when we had the first team players at the end of last season. I mean, especially Papi Mendy, I wanted him out this summer, and I know I'm not alone in that. And I mean, he's going to fight for that spot with Ndidi, which we never thought would ever happen. So it's definitely great, and we just hope to keep it rolling.
Yeah, totally agree with you there. Just quickly over to you, Dan, as well. Just a same question. Who's been your player so far that, and obviously you can more than happy to mention Mendy as well, but how well we've done this season as well?
Well, clearly Mendy's been spectacular, and maybe had we always had this Mendy, we'd probably never get Ndidi. So, but as far as the season's going, I would have never expected us to be this high. In fact, if you track down my Twitter, you probably see I fully expected us to struggle. Mid-table was highest I thought we'd be, but I would, if I was to pick out one player, maybe other than Mendy, I would say Dennis Pratt. And when he's been on the pitch, he's been a huge engine for us, working both ends of the pitch. And I think the energy he provides really helps us, especially going forward. You know, being a little bit of a different type of threat to run beyond Vardy when we need it.
Yeah, definitely agree there. I'm gonna just before I'm just gonna hand this over to James, because I know he's a big Dennis Pratt fan. I wasn't as much last year, but I don't know. I asked this to Ant last time. I don't know if he's leveled up the game massively, or if this is just a different way I'm seeing it. Is this exactly what you saw last year?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically, he's playing the same game. His runs are a lot better than they were last year, if I'm perfectly honest. His passing's the same. His ability to ping balls all over the place is the same, but his runs are a lot different. My player of the season so far when he plays is Jamie Vardy, because he's doing something different this year than he's never done before. So yes, he's a goal-scoring talent, but now he's taking 2 to 3 defenders away from Tielemans, Maddison, that right-hand side. He's doing dummy runs and he's taking players with him, and it's creating huge gaps that we're just basically using. So I think he's played well. And I know we spoke offline the other day about James Justin. He played 5 positions in 2 games. That's not easy for a defender to do. And I think he's coming on better and better. Yes, he has bad games, but he seems to be progressing at quite a high pace now.
Yeah, there's quite a few players, and we could talk about this for a while, and I think we'll probably stay on this for a while in regards to players that we've got. And I think we'll hand over to, well, as you were saying, with Jamie Vardy, there's taken 2 players away. So just coming over to you, Alex, in regards to how Leicester are playing, who do you think that's maximised more? Obviously, Jamie Vardy is going to be the clinical ball at Fox in the box, but because he's taken so many defenders away, who's been the player that's probably most benefited from that?
I would say there's 2 players, and maybe even 3. When James Maddison is on the field, he's much more open, but I think you also have to look at the wingers. You see Barnes and you see Under. They're allowed to play their game. Everyone's focusing on Vardy, and I think we've seen it particularly with Under and how he's been able to play with Vardy himself and just be able to run down the side of the field and, chip it into Vardy. And, he's gotten a few goals from that. So I think the wingers are definitely some of the players that have benefited from it.
Yeah, definitely agree there. Just kind of thought over to you, Ant. How good have the wingers been this season? Because it's something that we've kind of talked about a little bit. We needed more goals from certain areas. Barnes was kind of up there this year. But with Jamie Vardy taking them players away, does it seem like there's more of that connectivity between that midfield?
I don't think it's just that. I think that Barnes has developed massively over the last year as well and has improved as a player. And then as well, he's a level above Perez as a winger. Like, I'm a huge Jose Perez fan, but he's not a winger. And has come in and just been absolutely class.
For such a small amount of time that Under's been in the Premier League, I think there's a lot more growing to do. And I think it's amazing some of the players that have come on this season. Brendan Rodgers has said about Under as well that he will take a few games to really get in. But already, I think he's already got 2 assists. He looks sharp on the ball. He looks confident. And there's one player that we have to talk about, because especially after the Wolves match, we kind of have to talk about it. And I'll just give it over to you, Daniel. Kind of Wesley Fofana. I think he's been sensational for us, and I think for the first time he's actually been given credit from the rest of the media. So yeah, just take it away. What are your thoughts on him?
Well, I mean, where do you start? I mean, who would have expected? I mean, maybe John Rudkin did, and we should all, take everything back that we said about him and Lee Congreton in the summer. But I think he's actually keeping points on the board for us, meaning like we would have probably had a draw from that Wolves match because they were really looking a threat, and he made several like crucial tackles. And when they were they looked to be ready to open us up, he was there. So he is anticipating the game better than some guys who've been doing this a lot longer. And I can't speak highly enough of him.
Yeah, he's definitely a talent. Over to you, kind of JT. Is there anything else that you've been really impressed with Fofana, or even any of the back line, to be honest?
Yeah, Fofana has been in the spotlight a lot, especially with Leicester fans recently, over his performances, and rightly so. He's been fantastic. But you also have to look at the likes of like Christian Fuchs, James Justin, them coming in and still putting in performances. James Justin doesn't even have a constant position. He's playing right back, right wing back, left wing back. Sometimes he's in the I think at one point in the Wolves game looked like he was playing in the midfield, center back. He's just everywhere, and he's been as consistent as they come, really. And Fuchs, obviously, Wes Morgan, any of those old guard players are just like still coming in and putting in performances. Mark Albrighton was playing right back or right wing back in one of the games recently. It's just been squad depth on show, really.
Yeah, it really has. And I think the manager has a lot to do with that as well. Obviously, these players have just leveled up. And bearing in mind, it wasn't a long summer as well that they've actually had to really level up. They had not a lot of them weren't going away as much because of the COVID situation. They didn't have a lot of time and they were back into it. So is there anybody else from that midfield, or over to you, Austin, that you think that we haven't mentioned already or just want to expand on?
Christian Fuchs, really. I mean, we just thought he was kind of there to kind of shepherd maybe Luke Thomas across and help James Justin, but the way that he's come back in the last couple of games have been absolutely fantastic. And I mean, he's really helping Fofana have experienced guys next to him, which is going to help him tremendously, especially in the future. He's only 19, and the stuff that he's doing, I mean, is basically like a 26-year-old. I mean, it's incredible. And then the fact that we still got Luke Thomas, who's still coming into his own. Justin's playing everywhere. I mean, Evans is in and out of the squad, so you don't know what you're going to get from him. So the fact that we can have that third guy who you still trust, and Wes Morgan, I mean, don't forget about him and probably the leadership that he's showing on the training pitch and in the locker room. So that's just going to really help us. And then, I mean, it's showing on the table right now.
Yeah, it's one thing, especially after the 2016 season, we were all saying that we don't have the strength and depth we really need in the squad. And this year it just seemed to level up, and all these little players, and maybe even from last year, the players that were not in that starting 11 maybe felt a bit demoralized. But just kind of over to you, Alex, is this the strength and depth that we've kind of reinvigorated because half these players were bound to leave in the summer, and then there's a really nice balance of old and new within this squad. And how well do you think that's going to help us going forward?
Well, first off, I'm one of the first people, especially during the transfer window, that was criticizing the depth of our team. I was quite nervous to see what we had in depth, especially with the possibility of injuries. However, now it's incredible. Like you said, players from the old guard, younger players are jumping into a position that they may not normally play, or they're not really ready to take hold of, and they're producing and they're playing as if they're fighting for that spot. And I think that's what you need with your depth, because when you have your players coming in, it changes everything. You don't have, you could have Mendy coming in, but Papi Mendy is going to be fighting for that spot. You have James Justin in there, who's been all around the place, and he can just jump in wherever. And then you're going to have Ricardo come back in. So I think with this type of depth, it's great because, what we've seen in years previous, it's been, okay, we don't have the depth. And I think right now we really do.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's just been amazing to watch. Over to you, kind of, and a little bit about a player that I want to pick up on that is played, I think, three times in a week. Luke Thomas. Obviously, we saw him a bit last season, towards the end of last season, and I don't know if he's leveled up that much since. But for the way that he's playing, he as Austin was saying, it looks like he's never came out of the squad. He looks a lot older and a lot more mature than he actually is. I mean, what is the future going to be for this lad?
The thing is, with Luke Thomas, he finished last season quite well. And this season, when he's come in, he's done well, and he looks very mature. And it's going to be a long development for him because we've got some very good wing backs, obviously playing in his position. I don't want to get ahead of myself because he did struggle against Wolves, which is why he came off. But there is clearly a very, very good player in there, defensively very well aware, and has also got one hell of a delivery on him, the way that he can put the ball into the box. And I know we don't have the players that can attack that at the moment, but it's going to be a useful tool going forward.
Yeah, I definitely agree there. Is there any other players defensively that you want to pick up on, James? Because I know that we've kind of covered most positions at the moment, but it just seems like the whole squad knows what they're doing and they know why they're in the team and their role, regardless if they're first, second, or even third choice.
Yeah, I think personally it's all down to tactics. We went through at the back. We sit very deep now, get them on the counter, which is the way we won the league. The only problem is probably teams are now going to get used to it. So you'll destroy the teams that attack us. You're going to get the West Hams that we lost to are just going to do the same, and they're going to sit deep. And they're the teams last year that we couldn't break down. So it'll be interesting to see what we do against them. But I think with a fully fit squad, the tactics are going to change week in, week out. So everyone will be trying to second guess what team we're playing. And then we'll just destroy teams left, right and centre with a bit of luck.
Yeah, I'm hoping so, because Leicester have looked... I think one of the best things at the moment is that we're playing different formations. You look at last year, it was kind of, you could guess the 4-1-4-1 that was going to start. This year, it's brilliant because obviously the finest got in, is grabbing the headlines, but different players for different formations is exactly what we need. And also that's a great way to lead into the Europa League as well. But I was going to just over to you, Daniel, what are the major improvements you think compared to the squad last season?
I think it might be, and this maybe piggybacks off of what you and James were just talking about. I think it piggybacks off of our coaching staff and how any player who's come in hasn't let us down. So it's not that we've upgraded substantially in each position. It's just that the players are maybe just locked in more than they were last year. And, credit to them for getting over the way we finished the season after Project Restart to come back and go again, essentially, which, I guess none of us, as we said initially, really expected. But I think that's really where we're improving most, is that people have been able to come into the squad who weren't there originally and do the job, and there's been no drop off. I mean, we had Daniel Marty playing right center half at Man City, and you would have thought it was, pick a world-class center half, he did a great job.
Definitely agree. And bearing in mind, he's been out with a massive leg-breaking injury, which has set him out all the way since the West Ham game when the Vijay passed away, literally that same game that got obviously overlooked. So it's a massive, massive loss, and it's massive deal for him to come back and play his position. Before we were playing him in the centre midfield, he was looking okay, but it just seems like centre back is his best position as well. So just kind of on that, I'll hand over a bit to Austin, just kind of on that, has there been, what do you think? Do you think it was changing, keeping the elder people, the older people from like Wes Morgan and Mendy, or would you think it's just there's a whole dynamic shift that's going on at Leicester at the moment, because there is definitely something happening compared to last season?
So I mean, yeah, I mean the fact that, I mean, the end of the Wolves game, I texted my podcast partner. I'm like, it was almost like 15-16 again, because we had Vardy, we had Albright, we had Morgan in, we had, I mean, Schmeichel. I don't think we've been talking about enough how good he's been. But, I mean, the fact that we have these old players who's been through this multiple years and is helping all these young guys. I mean, we have to have probably 8 players who constantly contribute who are under 24. I mean, the youth in the squad, I mean, the only way you can have that work is with these older players. And when these older players not only can what to do and that it's working, it just helps us tremendously.
Yeah, I definitely think so. I think there's a really nice balance of old and new. But again, a lot of it is the same players as last year as well. And a lot of players that we thought were going to go out of the squad, like Mendy, as previously mentioned, Morgan, and even Fuchs, they've not, and they've stayed. I was going to say that's a big impact, but what other impact, JT, do you think they've had to the squad in general?
I mean, I think just things that can't be like understated with just general leadership. There's been reports recently saying that Wes Morgan's going to be offered like a administrative position at the club after he retires, or things like that. And I just think that that's what suits him. It's just he comes in, he gives solid performances, always just a rock, and he's always there. Just I think he could be credited for Fofana's progress as much as anybody. I would imagine, just based on I don't know, just his excitement and energy and just being able to really just lead a group. It's actually unbelievable just to watch. It's so fun to watch him play and lead a back line.
Yeah, I definitely agree that there's definitely points of that we've had to touch on as well. That a lot of the back line will obviously be missing this season. We've mentioned this before on the show before, but with just over to you, James, with Ricardo and Castagna both coming back and both hopefully playing together, what are we going to look forward to when these two come back? Because I know Ricardo's been out with a long-term injury, so he'll need nursing in a little bit more. But Castagna, we've seen his products already, but them two together, what are you expecting?
Quite explosive stuff. Ricardo will be back soon. My main worry is, yes, he'll be match fit, but will his head be the same? Because when you come back from an injury like that, you start pulling out of challenges because you don't want to get injured again for the first few games. So like you said, it'll be about bedding him in. I don't expect him to be playing first team football straight away. He'll probably come on as sub. But them two, pace will be amazing down both sides. I think Castagna will be helping Barnes out. Ricardo will be helping Under out. And it's going to be explosive stuff. I think one thing this season which has really impressed me is the defence. Pape Mendy has just stood in front of that defence and made that defence look a lot more solid than it probably has done in the past. I know we've mentioned him before. It's just a credit to him. I mean, Ndidi's back December time. You're not going to throw him back in because now you can bed him back in because you've got Pape Mendy doing the same job that he does. So I think the future is going to be good. My only thing is we're playing a lot of games at the minute. And as you know, Christmas time, it gets a lot worse. So it's whether we can keep up this momentum. I hope we can, but I just don't. I think the Leicester City side of me keeps saying, don't want to do what happened last year.
There's always that. We always think about that. But at the same time, I think with the strength and depth, I think Alex was mentioning earlier, it's made the whole situation better that we've got people that we can rely on. And just kind of coming over to you, Alex, a little bit in regards to how we're going to play going forward, because obviously we've got the Europa League as well now. We've kind of, I think we've got 9 points, 8 goal difference. We're sitting nice at the top of the table in Europa League as well. Is that a competition that we can do well in? And also, is that where you expect to see more changes come from? Because as James was saying, there's going to be the matches are going to be coming thick and fast.
I think still with the Europa League, we can still compete in it, especially because we're still in the group stage. And I think we've already proven that when we even change up our squad for those games, that we can compete. So I think we still have enough players that we can rest the players that we need for, our Premier League games or vice versa. So I think moving forward, even into December, I think we do have the opportunity to compete in both leagues, in both competitions at this point. Knock on wood, if an injury does come up again, then that might change things. But overall, especially with how they're continuing to play, I don't really see any need to worry as of yet.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It looks like, well, we'll have to see. Don't want to jinx anything at the moment, but it seems like the main injuries and 2 positions what we thought was so key in terms of defense is probably where we were weakest as well. We're having these injuries that they kind of come through, and hopefully we can nurse them back in. But I think so far, just back to the Europa League, and just how do you think we've done so far, and what do you think that's down to?
I think we've done very well so far, but at the same time, with the teams that are in the Europa League, you would be hoping we'll be towards the top of the group. But the way that we blew away Braga, that was brilliant because they are a top side. But apart from that, as well as we've done, you would almost expect us to be beating, I don't even know the name of the team from Ukraine, and Athens.
Yeah, we managed to get, I think, 3 goals, 2 goals, and 4 goals against each of against the sides. And Braga, as you were saying, the top side, we've managed to beat. Yeah, I think it's looking pretty good, to be honest. But yeah, just over to you, Dan. Kind of, what are your thoughts so far, and how Leicester's been going on the Europa League? Bearing in mind it's our first time in this competition.
Right. I'd say obviously it's been brilliant when you get 9 points from 9 available, but I think given where we're sitting in the group now, we could probably ring the changes at least a little bit, try and give people some rest, and use our best squad members in the league games to try and maybe maintain a top 4 spot into Christmas would be nice for me. The real challenging part, I would think, might be when the FA Cup comes around in January, and then you're in 3 competitions. I guess I'd like to hear from the UK-based guys, including you, Neil. What do we prioritize then? I mean, because if we're still in 3 competitions and we'd admittedly like to see Leicester win them all, where do you put your strength? I mean, that's a question for people that I honestly, I can't answer that one, because I don't think we can do all 3, but where do we go,
I'll give this one over to James. I think James is very knowledgeable about this. He's been watching football a lot longer than me as well.
So we should have been in the Champions League, and I always see the Europa as the Mickey Mouse Cup in Europe. I'm sorry, but it is. You see the teams in there, they're not. I mean, I've got a few friends that are Wolves fans. They got to the semi-finals without even playing a tough game last year. So I don't think it's a good competition. FA Cup, nearly every fan that's in the UK will say they want to win the FA Cup. The history in it is what football's all about. So I think if push came to shove, it'd be FA Cup and Premier League. But it depends how we do. FA Cup, you can get no end of opponents. If we get someone like Liverpool in the 3rd round, then you might struggle to get past them. But I think it depends where we are February, March time, and I think that's when the crucial decision point will be, is where are we in February? What position are we in the Premier League? Who have we got in the FA Cup, and where are we in the Europa? Europa, I think we can go far in. You just need to stay clear of teams like AC Milan, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's all well and good, but it wasn't to slate. Dan's question was not to slate the Europa League.
Why?
It was just a general comment. But over to you, and same question to you. Stay away from the bashing Champions League because we'll get there eventually. But yeah, what would you prioritize?
I'm going to go the complete opposite way of James, I think, here. As much as like, I'd rather be in the Champions League, I'd prioritise the Premier League first because that's where the prize money comes and that's where all of sort of you can build the club from the future if you finish higher up in the table. But at the same time, Europa League is a route back into the Champions League. As much as it's what did James call it? The Mickey Mouse European Cup. As much as it's that, at the same time, if we can win that, which is a big if, getting back into the Champions League would be huge for us as a club going forward, particularly with the new training ground coming in, having Brendan Rodgers as manager and a really exciting young player. If we can keep adding on to this, then we're going to be going in a really good direction for the future.
Totally agree. Austin, have you got any other thoughts on that as well? Obviously, we've got the 3 cups we're in and competitions, and just to kind of build on, Brendan Rodgers will want some top quality signs in. It looks like he's got them at the moment, but who is the 3 sign? Normally in the Premier League, you get every one sign that's good, you get a bad signing. And it just seems like all 3 that we've got so far have been pretty awesome. So which one have you liked?
I mean, my favorite's always been Under. I mean, he was a guy we were hoping for last year. I mean, we needed that guy who was really direct and just really, really going at defenses. Obviously, he isn't fully coming in the squad yet, but I definitely can't wait till he is fully in the squad. I mean, obviously, Fofana is how Fofana has been. But I think kind of what they're saying, I mean, I agree with Dan. I think we should go for the Europa League more than the FA Cup. I mean, I like the FA Cup. I hope to see us win it. I mean, we all hope to see us win a cup. But, I mean, hopefully, like they were saying, if we hopefully get some good draws, which is very rare for us. We usually never have a good draw in any competition. But, I mean, if we can get a good draw and kind of maybe get farther into the competition and without using so much of our players, I mean, we could – I mean – I hate to say this because the Leicester City of me say we won't, but we could have a legitimate shot to maybe win 3 trophies. It won't happen, but we could have a shot.
I can see Alex laughing. Can I just hand over to you? You've had a thought on that as well.
No, that just sounds like me when I'm talking about hockey and talking about my Maple Leafs winning.
I'm
like
a Jets fan, man.
To win like 6 games, we're gonna win the cup. So no, I totally know what you mean with that. The Leicester City in me, is like it's not gonna happen. But then there's the other side of me that while I watch other sports and those teams, I'm like, no, they're gonna win it all, even though they've only won 3 games out of the possible like 12. So I know exactly what you mean.
Fair enough. Yeah, just coming back to kind of the transfers and obviously how this season's gone. We've got 3 in, Castagna, Under, and I forgot his name now. I've forgot his name. Fofana as well. How can I forget? So how have you found Castagna as well, JT? Because obviously he's been a great asset. But what have your impressions of him?
I really do like him as a player. When he was on the right, which he's not going to be playing there once Ricardo comes back, but hopefully he can do the same thing on the left, playing alongside Harvey Barnes at that left side, kind of interchanging with him, overlapping runs that way. And then with Ricardo on the right, and hopefully Under on like the right wing, kind of playing like a cutting in direct winger, with Ricardo just running overlaps down that right side. That's just really exciting to think about, having that attacking fullback, which is just such like an integral part to being successful in the modern game.
Yeah, I definitely think so as well. I think one player that I want to bring it back to that I think a couple of you were mentioning was Mendy as well. And obviously we're seeing him kind of play a different role as well to the position that Ndidi plays. So you look at Ndidi would normally sit at the base of the triangle and then dictate all the play. If you look, and Tielemans used to drop back occasionally, but it looks like Tielemans and Mendy have got this connection now where they know what they're doing alongside each other, and Mendy will work just alongside as hard. So the best game for me was probably the Man City match, and how well he played there. But yeah, over to you, kind of, and again a little bit on how well all these transfers have come in and hit the ground running. I mean, most of the time you look at a player like Ayoze Perez, where Brendan Rodgers said he will take a few months to bed in. It just seems like all of these footballers, to a certain extent, have just hit the ground and then go, right, I know what I'm doing. I know my formation in the club. What are your thoughts on that?
I think particularly how negative we were at the start of the season. I remember talking to Lewis, obviously Chelsea fan Lewis, and we weren't feeling confident at all before that West Brom game. And just how well some of the players, well, all of the players that have come in. Castagne, a player that a lot of Leicester fans wrote off before he'd even kicked a ball, has been absolutely brilliant. Fofana, yes, there was a big fee for him, but he's more than like living up to the hype of that £30 million. And then Under, he's a difficult one because obviously he is online with the option to buy, but you're seeing those moments of brilliance. It's just, you can't give too much of an opinion on him until you see him fully bedded into the team. But what we have seen of him so far looks brilliant.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, James, we were talking about Leicester have always got the transfers right for the most part. And is this one of the seasons where it seems like the transfers have all gone our way? Because look at a season compared to 2016, where we kind of recruited a lot of nothing, even including Mendy, who's not really performed as good as we think he has until now. But is this just one of the seasons where all the transfers have really, they've set out with a purpose of why they've got them and they've got in the right player for that role?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it makes it so. The 2016 season was difficult because Ranieri had only been in for a season. Didn't really change much. Played the same formation, same players. So getting people in is difficult. Whereas Rodgers has got a kind of formation. He knows what type of players that we need to bring in for them positions. So I think recruitment-wise, we've done really well. One thing at the back of my mind is this time last year, Chilwell head got turned by going to Chelsea. If Fofana keeps playing the way he does, PSG are going to start come knocking and heads are going to start to get turned again. So it's up to the players and the club to try and stop that happening again, because that was awful the way Chilwell's head just dropped. But he was being played week in, week out. And I can see heads being turned again. You're top of the league, teams are going to start coming, and the big teams are going to start coming because they've got the money to do so.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you there. I think a couple of parts on that. That's always happened to a certain extent. You look at Maguire, Drinkwater. We tend to lose one every season. Kante, he didn't turn his back on the squad a little bit more, but he said he doesn't want to sign a contract. Was going to go. I mean, you saw Riyad Mahrez is probably the perfect example of his head went and then he really wanted to go, and his performances weren't as good, but he was still an all right player. For me, what's more important, that we can't rely on the players to not get their heads turned. When you get approached by a big team, there is a pull towards them, especially with like a Man United, for example, and the legacy that they've got. And we've, as a smaller club, we've got to kind of accept that. The brilliant thing is, for every single player that we've lost, we've replaced them with as equal or better. And this is with something that I was talking to a Wolves fan on. Again, we were doing a pre-match against Wolves, and they were talking exactly the same thing. They lost Doherty and they lost Jota, but they replaced them with pretty much identical people. And that's something that I think as a squad, we're just going to have to kind of get used to. This squad will kind of change, and a good player will leave and another player will take their position. Like if you compare Castagne to Chilwell, they are different players, but you can see the advantages of both. And again, Chilwell's looking back to playing some brilliant football at the moment. But yeah, I think overall, sorry, you were saying, James?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a conversation we've always had. I think we're a top six club, but we're not a big six club. And I was talking to a fan last week around, if you sell one player every season between 60 and 80 million, and that pays for better players and more wages to attract these players, then surely that's the better for the club, because we are a growing club. Give it 5 to 10 years and we could well break that big six mould. But it's getting there, and I think we're doing the right thing. Yeah,
I totally think you're right. And as well, to back up on that point, we've only been in the Premier League since 2014. It's not like we're a yo-yo club. We're a certified. I think people that watch the Premier League will consider us a top 10 team. That is a big achievement within itself within 6 years, because so many teams, you look at Watford of last year, where they came up, got 7th, got relegated. This can happen. Southampton, they were down with a 9-0, and now they've come back and sprung back. So it's up and down. But the fact that we're putting the money back into the squad, I think we'll kind of end on. We'll go through each of the players. So I think we'll give I'll give over to you, Dan, quickly. What has been a player that's been your favourite to watch so far, and also with the upcoming transfer window, who do you think we would get in, or what kind of player would you like us to get in?
That's actually a really challenging question, given how everybody's been performing. The first one that pops to mind, surprisingly enough, is Mark Albrighton, but because he never lets us down. I mean, but his qualities are probably not perfect for us going forward as far as what we're going to want in the future. But he's such a hard worker, so reliable. And I love the way Kasper Schmeichel's been playing. Especially, I like to rewind in my mind how people used to want to play Danny Ward over him. I mean, as recent as last year. Going forward, as far as transfers, I think I saw someone mention the Luka Jovic transfer again on Twitter today, and I was thinking that would be fantastic if we could make it happen. I'm not sure if it would work, but it's one of those cases like Brendan Rodgers was talking about. He's got the quality, and you probably would base that decision based on what he can do. So I don't know what everybody else feels about him, or if Rodgers is actually looking at him. But I mean, in terms of a person you would really like to see, or you think could do the job after Vardy decides to hang up his boots, he might be the kind of guy.
Yeah, so. There's a lot of conversation about that, and we've been having it for arguably about 2-3 years now with the whole Vardy situation. But just over to you, Alex, a kind of similar thing of what position would you fill in, and who's your player of the season so far?
Player of the season, I have to say Jamie Vardy, and the reason why is the guy's 33. Everyone expected, he was, winning the Golden Boot last year it's like, oh, well, it was a one-off. He comes in this season and he's tied for first in scoring yet again. And he's game in, game out, 120%, leaving everything on the field. And, everything that he's doing is, I feel like I'm watching like a 25-year-old Jamie Vardy, like a young player. And, when you find out that he's 33, everyone's like, wait, he's that old right now? And usually for a striker, at 33, you're not doing much. Having said that, I think you need to start looking at the possibility of getting a new striker to come up after Vardy, because, if Vardy goes down, that's the big what if. I don't think Nacho can fully take over that role by himself. And, he just doesn't have the same drive that Vardy does. So, just like Dan said, I would be, with those rumors going around with Luka Jovic, I'd be very interested to see if that would ever play out. I'm skeptical to say the least. If it was going to be anything, it'd probably be a loan deal if it was ever going to happen. But I think you need to start looking for a striker, just for the possibility that if Jamie Vardy does get injured, but as well as you have to look for the future as well. Because as bad as it is to say, Jamie Vardy is getting older. So. Yeah,
and we've based a lot of our play around that from time to time. I think we have started to change it up a little bit, but obviously he's such a talisman that we've struggled to adapt to that. Just over to you, JT, same question to you, kind of what are your thoughts, what's your man of the match, and who would you like to get in?
Maybe not the most important, or maybe not the best player that we've had this season, but a different one that we haven't really talked too much about would be James Maddison. I just love watching him play, just the way that he just is like shifty movements, just like playing on like a half turn. The goal against Braga. No, not Braga. No, yeah, okay. Well, I think it was Braga, where he turned and slipped the ball through to Under, who then assisted Vardy. I might still be mistaken on the match, but just that play epitomizes who he is as a player, and I just love watching that. But I think we're all in agreement probably about the signing a striker in January. I think that's really where we need to go. Even if it's just a loan, I think Jovic would be perfect. The season that got him the move to Real Madrid was when he was at Eintracht Frankfurt, and he tore up the Europa League. Absolutely, just manhandled everybody in that competition. If we signed him, I think that would show that we're just going for that competition just to get that trophy into the cabinet. I think he would be just fantastic. He has the qualities to be. He's young. He has all the quality to be able to replace Vardy in the future when that time sadly does come.
Yeah, I think we're all on a similar kind of path here with a similar kind of player, because I've seen a lot of them rumors going around.
Yeah.
Just over to you, Austin, similar thing of who's the player that's your man of the season so far, and who would you like to bring in?
We haven't really talked about him, which is kind of shocking, but Yuri Tillemans and just how good he's been lately. I mean, like we were saying, he's doing well defensively. He's doing well attacking. I mean, he's scoring pins for us. I mean, he's doing everything for us. And I mean, he's going back to that form when we originally had him on loan at first, and now then obviously he had a really rough start of the season last year, but now he's getting back into form and he's just looking brilliant. But I mean, I'm agreeing with everyone. We got to have a striker, and a striker that I would love. I mean, obviously Jovic, but just a striker that's a bully, like a bully in the air, and just, I don't know if y'all watch like Lukaku and how he plays now, but just how he just bullies people off the ball. I mean, if you have a guy like that who can just lay off into Vardy, I mean, that's a guy that we're going to look for short term.
Yeah, but I agree that somebody that up front could really handle their own would be something brilliant. Over to you, and the word banned for you is Morales.
Oh, okay, that's Solomon. Who I was going to say, but no, Luka Jovic is one. I think obviously the rumours have been going on since last summer, and I do think there is something in this. And he's a top quality player, but it just hasn't worked at Real Madrid for him. I almost feel like the move to go into Real Madrid came too quickly for him. So somewhere like Leicester, competing in the Europa League, where he could probably get his career back on track. A lot of games for us, obviously, with Vardy getting older, you don't want to say it, but slowly coming towards the end of his career. Bringing in someone like Luka Jovic, who's really got a point to prove, to getting back to the level that he was at, I think would be a brilliant signing.
Yeah, totally agree. Just over to you, James. I know we've talked about Jovic over the summer as well, but I think just obviously, what are your thoughts on Jovic? And I think, is there anybody else that we've missed out? Because I think we've covered the entire squad so far.
Yeah, I think Jovic would be a good fit. I think the only thing that, and we spoke about this in the past, we're going to have to get someone in loan, because we're not going to pay big money because they're just going to sit on the bench. Just as Iheanacho does, he sits on the bench because Vardy is that top striker. He plays on his own. He doesn't really play with two up front. He can play with someone behind him. So I think if we got him, he would be great on loan. And like you say, we're going to have to start managing Vardy a bit better, because the amount of games we're playing is, as Alex said, he is getting on now. His body's not going to be able to recover as fast. So someone on loan would be great. And then at the end of the season, you can buy him. Kind of try before you buy, like we do with Tillemans. As far as player of the season, Tillemans for me. We had lots of conversation last year around he wasn't mobile enough. He seems to have lost about half a stone and has got that mobility back and that pace from when he came on loan. And I think it's great to see. Be interested to see what happens now Maddison's back, because sometimes he plays a bit deeper. So hopefully if they can get them two ticking together, then that midfield is going to be unstoppable.
It really is. And with the amount of decent players like Pratt's coming up another level, they're all competing for it as well. And something that you actually mentioned there about Jovic is that it seems very similar to the Tillemans situation. Obviously, we got him on loan in January. His big move to Monaco didn't quite work out, and they took the risk, and then we ended up getting him. It could be a similar thing with Jovic, but I think the reason why they haven't brought in a player yet is A, Jamie Vardy's so good, you can't really replace him at the moment. B, you're going to have to pay him a lot of money. And C, I think what they've realised as well is they've tried to rush players in before. I think they did it with Molly Wagu like a couple of seasons ago. They did it with Ryan Bennett. They're getting these players and they're not quite sure. Now you look at the likes of you look at the likes of Castagna, they look at the likes of what's it called? Fofana as well. They've been tracking these players for ages, and they're pushing to make sure they have the right mentality as well. So it's definitely interesting. And again, we can't really ask for too much more. We're top of the Premier League. We're top of the Europa League. We are nitpicking a little bit, but I think a lot of it is just enjoy it while it lasts, because there's a lot of good happening at the moment. So I'd like to thank everybody all for coming on once again. Dan, what is your Twitter? Where can the people find you?
I'm at metcage64 on Twitter, which I've been wanting to change for years, but I haven't because people actually know me as that. But yeah, that's me on Twitter.
Brilliant. I'll make sure that everybody's links in the description as well. JT, where can the people find you?
At Twitter at USA_LCFC, the American Fox. Yeah, that's about it.
No worries. And just quickly over to you, Austin. Same question.
I'm at OC Player One on Twitter, and I'm also on the First for LCFC podcast, which you can follow them at First for LCFC, and we're also on Spotify in that as well.
Brilliant. Really thank you guys for coming on. Really appreciate it. Thank you for everybody for watching. If you got this far, really appreciate it. And we'll see you hopefully all in the next video. So goodbye.